Well, social media has dubbed it the road trip from hell. And well, it's been just that for the Flames. This team definitely works hard, competes hard, but where the hell is the talent? There's definitely levels to the elite teams versus what we saw from the Flames. Why don't we talk about it? I mean, maybe even rant about it. Welcome inside the Red Mile Rundown, episode 24, where Robert and I are about to do some honest assessments of the Calgary Flames. Of course, I'm Johnny Stope at Vintage Johnny 84. He is Robert Munich at Ring of Fire CGY. Robert, how are you today?
I'm doing pretty good. It's an exciting time of year around the NHL. I hope that it's not going to be an exciting time for the Calgary Flames. I hope they don't do a whole heck of a lot, except maybe trade a couple veterans or something like that. But yeah, I'm very excited for deadline season here.
Me too. This is one of the best weeks of the year for me. It's like the build up to Christmas for me. If you think back to when you were a kid, all the rumors you see on social media, all the speculation, everyone's teams, should get all the best players, and everyone wants to trade all of their worst players, and so you get some of these wild trade. It's a lot of fun to listen to and look at and have conversations with. We're going to do that on today's show a little bit, but Robert, we have to visit. I know we don't want to, but we have to visit what we saw on the weekend from the Calgary Flames, a couple of games, and it did not look good. Robert, what did you make of the weekend?
Yeah, man, those are some tough watches. Going back even to like the San Jose game, their first game out of the break. It's been a rough week or so here for Calgary Flames and their fan base. Like, I've watched like a lot of hockey this year. I watched a lot of different teams. I don't know if I've seen a week or two run kind of like the Calgary Flames just had, mainly from like an entertainment standpoint. I got to say they played some of the least entertaining hockey I've seen this year and maybe over the last like couple years. That was really, really hard to watch. This team just cannot manufacture anything in the offensive zone right now. It's pretty brutal to watch. Were you in this kind of the same boat as me, or did you think that it was actually pretty fun and entertaining?
When you watch a team play 3 games, 9 periods of hockey, just over 9 with a little bit more than that because of the overtime period, and they get a collective 1 goal, there's not much joy you can take from that, in my opinion. People are going to give the Flames a break in that Tampa Bay game, saying that they competed hard. Sure, I guess, but they didn't create anything in that game. And then that followed over to where it was a downhill affair in Florida versus the Panthers for me. And then Sunday night in Carolina, I think the Flames actually escaped that hockey game because Carolina was only okay, but you scored 1 goal in 9 periods. It's just hard to be inspired. It's hard to get amped up. It's hard to say that, hey, this was a really fun Flames team to watch over the last little while. And so I'm right there with you, Robert. That was a tough one. The big thing for me, you noted it as well, as we've been chatting back and forth on social media and Twitter and texts and things. The gap between the Flames with their skill and these elite teams, the Torontos, the Avalanche, the Panthers, the Hurricanes, these teams, is a Grand Canyon. It's absolutely massive. That this Flames team can work their tail off and still come out with only 3 points in 4 games, and people on social media are trying to say that's a successful start to a hard road trip. I just can't get on board with that. The hard work is going to get you so far. The skill difference is astronomical, Robert. How do you see that? How do you I guess put into words what you saw in that skill gap between what we saw the Hurricanes, the Lightning, the Panthers, and what we saw from the Flames? Because for me, it's a Grand Canyon.
Yeah, man, it's hilarious hearing the media try and spin this road trip into a positive for the Flames. Because, you hear them say, like, in Tampa, oh, man, they played a really good game in Tampa, but they just couldn't score. they couldn't generate anything against Tampa. What are you talking about? It was a good game. Sure, they fought hard and they played well defensively, but to say like the overall effort and the overall performance was like a really good one and they should have got points out of it, it's like, are you kidding me? And I also see some stuff almost excusing this road trip, like, the Flames, they're playing against elite level competition. Well, what do you think's going to happen if they make the playoffs? They're going to be playing elite level competition, because if they do end up making it, they'll be in the 8th seed and they're going to play the top seed in every single playoff round. So it's like, you're going to end up running into Winnipeg or Vegas in the first round. And then after that, you'll end up getting an Edmonton or a Dallas. It's like, well, what do you expect to happen then? So it's crazy, man. I cannot believe some of the spin that I've heard about this road trip, because you're right. The talent gap between the Flames and the high-end teams in the NHL, teams that actually have a chance to win a Stanley Cup, is so big. It's massive. And if it wasn't for Dustin Wolf and Dan Vladar over the last few games here, they probably should have gone 0-5. They played pretty well against Washington, so maybe give them a break there. But they played terrible against San Jose to come out of the Four Nations break. They've been awful the last 3 games. They're not even close. And I just don't understand how Craig Conroy and ownership can look at this group and be like, oh, this is really worth investing in. Like, I think we have a shot to do something. It's just, it's insane to even think that. It's crazy.
The glossing over the Flames being in a playoff spot today on social media as well, for me, is one that I just shake my head at, because they're only in that position because Vancouver fumbled the bag on the weekend versus Seattle and Anaheim, dropping both of those games. If Vancouver wins either one of those games, the Flames are still on the outside looking in. So trying to put a positive spin on this road trip, I can understand that to a point, but when you're so vastly outplayed through 3 games, like there was a tweet I saw earlier today, Wolf and Vladar's last 3 games save percentage is 905 versus Tampa. It was a 929 versus Florida and a 939 versus Carolina. So your goaltending is standing on its head, trying to keep you in these games, and you still can't win these hockey games. You're still being outplayed. You're still being caved in by these elite teams. And you've backed your way into a playoff spot just because you have a tiebreaker versus a team that fumbled the bag versus 2 teams that they probably should have beat on the weekend. And I couldn't believe, if I did a Vancouver Canuck podcast right now, that I'd be very happy with what I saw from the Canucks on the weekend. Again, different conversation. But Robert, like, you nailed it on the head here. The amount of people bending over backwards here, trying to make this road trip seem like a good thing right now, it baffles me, because your goal is to be a team that can compete with the elites of the elites to win a Stanley Cup. That's what you want to do. That's the team you want to be. You want to be up there, and you want to be known for a team that can beat anybody on any given night. They play Philadelphia on Tuesday night, and I have no faith that this team is going to manage any more than 2 goals. And the way that the Flyers play, that game could be a very big letdown for a lot of people. It could be a very sluggish type of a game, because this Flames team just doesn't have it, in my opinion, to push them over the top here, to play with those upper echelon teams. So bend over backwards and try to put all the positive spin on this road trip that you want to. The fact of the matter is they've scored 4 goals in 4 games, only had 1 in 9 periods, like we've mentioned, and you absolutely got caved in by 3 teams. I'll give them credit in Washington. That was they managed to get themselves points in that game, but it's hard to find credit anywhere else on this road trip. And I just don't understand it. I don't understand. Other than praising the goaltenders, who do you praise on this roster? Who stood out in those 3 games for you, Robert, other than the goaltending?
Off the top of my head, nobody.
Point.
And it's hilarious. Like you listen to the broadcast, and I'm like, after the first period in Carolina yesterday, they're like, "Well, the Flames, they came out hard and they had their legs," and I was just like, "What? What are you talking about? How could you possibly put a positive spin on that first period when they got 1 shot and it was from the goal line from Rasmus Andersson? It looked like it wasn't even going to hit the net." And they're trying to put a positive spin. Oh, they had their legs, and they were working hard. If we want to bring a little bit of positivity to the road trip, I will say you got to give the Flames credit for the effort level. Like, this is not a talented group, but they are doing everything they can just to like hang on and be in these games. Like, I look at the penalty kill yesterday in Carolina as an example. The penalty kill, they were blocking shots like crazy. They were playing their ass off. Kevin Ball took a block shot to the back of the head. Like, these guys, they truly are sacrificing, and they truly are, doing everything in their power from a work ethic standpoint to keep themselves in this mix. And I think you have to give them credit for that. And, obviously you give credit to the goaltending, but there's just there's so many other elements to this team that are just not up to the standard right now. The power play is a disaster right now. They can't even make passes in the offensive zone. They can't do any sort of high end playmaking. Everything is from the outside. Everything is just get it on net and hope and pray. You can get a rebound or a tip or something like that. There's no skill. There's no creativity. It's just really, really difficult to watch. And, going into the trade deadline here, I just don't see how this Flames group, this management team, can possibly look at this group and say, we need to add and we need to help these guys. I don't understand how they could possibly think that. And the scary thing is, you got St. Louis and Utah right on your heels. They're both starting to play quite a bit better. So it's not just you and Vancouver in competition. It's now you, Utah, and St. Louis. And I don't know, man. I don't know if it's going to end well, just based off what I've seen over the last. It's not even just the road trip. I mean, they've been bad the whole year. I mean, let's face it. Outside their start, they've been a bad hockey team all year.
Well, we saw very similar things. They were able to score goals before the break. We saw very similar efforts where the work was there. They were playing hard, but teams like Toronto and Winnipeg and Colorado came through Calgary and just swiped the floor with the Flames. They were able to outscore them, able to outskill them. So we're not going to fault the Flames team for the effort, because you see the efforts there. That second period in Carolina yesterday was one of their better periods of the road trip. They just or unable to generate anything on the inside to give themselves an opportunity to produce some goals. And then they end up giving up the goal late in the period there. So the effort is there, and I agree with you on that. So we'll give them a credit there, but the skill level is just vastly different. We heard as well coming out of this break, this Four Nations break, everyone's back. Everyone's healthy. We can't wait to see Ball in this lineup. We can't wait to see Frost and Zari in the lineup at the same time. So I'll throw this to you, Robert. What have you made of seeing the two new acquisitions of Farabee and Frost, and you got your two injured guys back in Zari and Kevin Ball all in a lineup here? What have you made of the roster? I know we're lacking the skill, and I know we're lacking that kind of thing, but are you happy with what you've seen from the growth of these guys? Are guys lacking in your opinion? Is Zari not up to snuff? What are you seeing from these guys now that we have everyone back and quote-unquote healthy?
Yeah, it's funny. Everyone's talking about this is the best lineup the Flames have iced all season. And, since they've returned from the Four Nations break, I think they've been really, really bad in 4 of the 5 games so far. They've not looked good at all. I think Farabee is struggling mightily. I don't know what's going on with him. I don't know if he's hurt, or I don't know if, there is, I think Pat Steinberg floated out there that, there's almost some leftover trauma from dealing with John Tortorella. I don't know if that's the case or not, but I mean, he has not looked great. Frost, at times you can see the skill and you can see why the Flames were so interested in him. So I think there's some decent potential there, but he struggled. Connor Zary, since returning to the lineup, has not looked like the same player. It looks like he's a step behind, and I wonder if that knee is still kind of a bit of an issue for him. So I haven't really liked his game. And when you look up and down the lineup, the only two guys that are really kind of carrying the load over the last 10 games is probably Huberdeau and Kadri. Even them in the last few games haven't really done a whole heck of a lot, but you need to see more from pretty much everybody on this team. Everybody needs to step up just a little bit. And whether that's Michael Backlund, who's playing some of the worst hockey I've ever seen from him, or Blake Coleman, who's really struggling, or Yegor Sharangovich, who's just a healthy scratch, despite signing a 5-year contract extension last summer. Everybody's just not really playing up to snuff right now, and when it comes to the offensive side of things. So it may be their best looking lineup on paper, but on the ice, they sure haven't stepped up. And I just want to ask you something about Sharangovich.
Yeah.
Did you agree with them scratching him yesterday? And do you think that contract is looking like a bit of a mess so far, or are you not giving up on him just yet?
I will say that the scratch was warranted because of what you've seen from Sharon Govich. She was an absolute pylon in Florida, like a lot of other Flames, and I think that really tipped the hat. He's not scoring, he's not creating, and that's what you're paying the guy to do. I'm not going to give up on the player though because he struggled for a few weeks here out of coming out of an injury and coming back, and he just hasn't found his footing this year. You guys struggle, and you get that. You just hope that this is a struggle for this year, and that going into next year, he can find a role and get back some of that struggles that play that made him so good, the 30-goal scorer. I wonder how much of his injury derailed his progression, and he's still trying to play catch up himself. I know people are going to say, well, it's been 40 plus games, John, but some guys take longer. That's just how it is. So I'm not going to give up on the player. You need more from the player. I agree with Huska scratching him because, like you mentioned, not a lot of people on offense right now are giving you a ton of confidence in their game. Even Matt Coronado at times, sure, he had that really good shot and that really nice goal on this road trip, but where's he been over the last couple of games? Need to create a little bit more. Be tougher on pucks. You need the Kadris and the Hubros to continue to lead this group. You need anything from Michael Backlund, just anything from that guy. And I think a lot of these guys, the Zaris, the Frosts, the Farabys, are still trying to find roles on this team. I like Ryan Husko overall, but the one thing that drives me crazy about his coaching style is he is so quick to put lines in a blender and not let guys try to find chemistry with one another. If it's not working for 2 shifts, he blends the lines and makes new ones. Let these guys find roles and let these guys have an opportunity to find some chemistry together. Maybe that's part of Sharon Govich's problem. Maybe that's part of Faraby's problem. Maybe that's part of Zari's problem. Or maybe I'm out to lunch. Who knows? But for me, the offensive struggles, man, it's hard to really put a pin in it other than there's just not enough skill there for these guys. But to go back to your original question there, yeah, I think Sharon Govich was absolutely warranted a healthy scratch. What about yourself?
Yeah, 100% he was. I've not liked his game all season. And, like when Yegor Sharangovich is on his game, he's playing with speed. He's playing with a lot of confidence. He's engaged, and he's getting off a ton of shots. He's not doing any of that right now. Like when I watch him and I really kind of keep my eye on him, I have a hard time coming up with any sort of positive to his game this year. There's zero physicality. There's zero sort of physical engagement, intensity. Like none of that exists in his game. There's no playmaking. Whenever the puck ends up on a stick, the play dies on it. He can't make plays right now. He's barely shooting the puck. When was the last time you saw Sharon Govich kind of get off? How he with that wrist shot, it's almost kind of a slingshot sort of deal. When was the last time you saw anything like that? When was the last time you saw him just smash a one-timer on net on the power play? When was the last time you've seen anything from this guy? It's completely gone. It's non-existent. It's very frustrating because with a team that struggles to score goals like the Flames do, you need a guy like Sharon Govich to be a 20 to 30 goal scorer. And he's not even coming close to living up to that right now. And I'm with you. I'm certainly not going to give up on the player now. He seems like the kind of guy that's extremely streaky. You look in New Jersey, it was a bad year, and then it was a really good year, and then it was a bad year, and then he comes to Calgary, really good year. Second year in Calgary, really bad year. It's almost like he's an on and off type of player. So I want to see what he can do next season when he has a full off season of training, and he doesn't have an injury that he's recovering from when he gets back into the lineup. I want to see what he's like next year, but it's been a very, very disheartening season for the guy. And I think it should be a warning sign for Craig Conroy not to sign players coming off of career seasons. I think you should probably, like I said, instead of bringing him back on a career year, let's see what he can do next season. Let's see if he can replicate that rather than just throwing him the bag after one good year. And I know another big reason they signed him in the offseason last year is because he wanted to be in Calgary. This is a guy who wants to be here. This is another reason why you can't make decisions based off of that, because just because a guy wants to be there doesn't mean that it's the right move to sign him to a long-term contract. You got to be a lot smarter than that if you're the Flames management team. So yeah, it's been a super, super disappointing year. I'd probably say out of all the players on the team, he'd be right up at the top of the list in terms of biggest disappointments this season, probably alongside a guy like Rasmus Anderson and even a Michael Backlund, those types of players. It's been a rough year for a lot of guys, unfortunately.
How dare you have a conversation about most disappointing players and not put Miromanov at the top of that list? Can't believe you,
but with
Robert.
Miromanov, there's like no expectations with him. It's like
Yeah, that's
he was
true.
a complete wild card, right? Whereas all these other guys have had like pretty good seasons in the NHL prior to this year. You know what I mean?
If
But Miromanov
Sharon
has been
Govich,
terrible.
yeah, if Sharon Govich wants to be in Calgary and he signed that contract because he wanted to be here and play for this team, and he sees the opportunity, then he needs to start showing it. And that's where I'm at with Sharon Govich. You have this brand new contract kicking in next year. There is opportunity here. Clearly, the Flames need scoring. Clearly, the Flames need top six forwards who can produce. There's your opportunity. Go take it. And that's where I'm at with Sharon Govich. So he needs to go take it. Anything else on the forward group? Because I'm about to go to the defensive side, and you know that I have something logged up for that. So anything else you want to talk about the forward group here before we move on to talk about the defense? And we're not going to talk about Rasmus Anderson very much in the defensive conversation for those who are wondering, because that's all over social media. Go have your debate there. But anything else from the forward group there, Robert, you want to talk about?
No, let's hear what you got to say about the D.
Okay, and I'm not doing this because Miromanov played. We'll get that clear and out of the way. I think he needs to leave, but we'll get that in a different time. This Flames team struggles to score goals, and so they rely a lot on the defensiveness of the hockey game and the goaltending to be successful, to be a group that can get some wins here and things. But in my opinion, we're not seeing that from the Calgary Flames. And I found some numbers where they stack up against the league, where that just kind of like show that I'm not really satisfied with what we're seeing from this group. And this is with or without Kevin Ball. If Kevin Ball makes that big of a difference, the Flames have much bigger issues. Your goals against average of the league is 181. And then for the Flames, it's 175. So versus the league average, they have way better goals against average. Then your expected goals, 119 across the league is the average, and the Flames are at 98. So these numbers are showing me that your goaltending is bailing out this team. The Flames, in my opinion, need to do a little bit better job defensively structured in their own group to not allow these other teams these high danger opportunities. Where did I have that number at? I just lost my page. There we go. The league's average for high dangers is 39 over the course of the whole season. The Flames are at 43. They're allowing way more than the league average in high danger opportunities. And then you go to just these basic stats, defensive stats. Goals allowed, they're 14th, so good goaltending. But your shots on goals allowed are 23rd in the league, so you're down near the bottom of the league. Just if you're going to rely on your defense to have that much power of your game to allow your team to, or try to give your team the ability to win hockey games, you can't be in the bottom third of all these categories. You can't allow these other teams to have all this space on the inside, allow way more high dangers than you're seeing across the league, and relying solely more on the goaltending. So we're seeing Dustin Wolf bail this team out. We saw Dan Vladar bail this team out and almost do it twice on this road trip in Tampa Bay with the effort that he gave, that Herculean game that he played in Tampa Bay. He stole that game for me in Washington for the Flames. Just you expect more. It does start with Rasmus Anderson and his struggles. You need more from Mackenzie Weegar, even though he's been really good, but you just don't have the depth behind those guys. And so for me, the Flames' defensive structure is just not up to snuff, and it's allowing these teams to come in there and have their will with the Flames while you're not producing. Is just a further recipe for disaster that we're seeing of this Flames team. But you're just not going to be successful if the one thing you're trying to rely on isn't being relied on enough to give you those opportunities to win hockey games. It might just be a me thing, looking at these numbers and watching how the Flames play defensive and structurally. Your back checking is a little bit soft here from a lot of these guys here. So if you're not producing, you've got to be preventing, and I'm just not seeing it. And maybe it's just me not seeing it. I don't know what other people think. Your thoughts, maybe, Robert, on the defense, what you're seeing structurally from this team. And you just need a lot more from guys, especially Anderson. Ball needs to give a little bit more. And you just need your guys to step up here a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, I think the one thing that I've kind of seen is I found this group, they've allowed like a lot of breakaways, a lot of odd man rushes, like a lot of grade A's based off of just silly mistakes, whether it's turnovers or bad pinches or staying deep in the offensive zone for too long. They are giving up a lot of those grade A's, and Dan Vladar and Dustin Wolf are having to bail them out a lot. And another thing too is they're not the most physical group. I'd like to see maybe a little bit more physicality from them in the defensive zone, whether that's in front of the net with some more battling, whether if it's along the boards, winning more puck battles, throwing more hits. Like, it just seems like this Flames team as a whole can be kind of easy to play against in that regard sometimes. Like, I know the Flames, they work hard and they block shots and they stick check a lot, but you kind of want them to impose their physicality a little bit more on their opposition every now and then. So, and like you said, Dustin Wolf and Dan Vladar, mainly Dustin Wolf, has kind of shielded the Flames most of the season here. Like, he's been phenomenal, and I do agree. I think structurally they do need to step their game up a little bit for sure.
And I'm not just picking on the defensemen, like the 6 guys who play in front of Dustin Wolf or Dan Vladar. It's team as a whole structurally, like the slow back checks from guys, like guys are trying to, like, they did the dump and chase thing, or they're not just, they missed their mark, and so they're not on their horse to get back. And you see these teams that have hard work ethic and guys that care a lot, that they lose a puck or they turn over the puck, they're usually one of the first 2 or 3 guys back in the defensive zone trying to clean up after the mistakes. I'm just not seeing that from a lot of guys on this ice. You talk about the guys right in front of Dustin Wolf or Vladar that play on the wing, and everyone goes immediately to how good Rasmus Anderson's been. He's a team worse minus 21. The next closest to him that I found was Kadri at minus 18. Take plus minus for what you will, but minus 21 is a big number at this point of the season. So the guy that you want to rely on in those situations to shut down guys, you're not getting that from him. You're not seeing guys like, where's Michael Backlund's defensive responsibilities gone? Blake Coleman, for me, has been more of a perimeter player than what we've come to know from him. You got your new guys in Frost and Farabee still trying to figure that out. Where is it from Kadri, who used to be really good at coming back and tracking guys back? He's a little bit less. So it's a team effort for me. You just got to clean up the things that you can't produce. You've got to prevent. That's a big thing in hockey. If you're going to produce a ton of goals, you don't have to prevent as much because you have the puck. You're controlling the play. That's not what the Flames are doing. They're chasing too many hockey games. They're chasing too many plays, and it ends up costing them. Those goals that Carolina got yesterday were all on plays that the Flames were puck watching or chasing the play at. And you just can't have that when you're just not producing hockey, when you're not producing goals and not being able to be good enough to win these hockey games. You got to play perfect hockey, and we're just not seeing that from the Flames. Massive credit to Dustin Wolf, massive credit to Dan Vladar for the jobs that they've done on this road trip and over the course of this season. People need to give Vladar a little bit of a, I'm sorry, you actually can play well when you put your mind to it, because he was phenomenal in those 2 games that he's played, and we all know what Dustin Wolf is here as well. You sent me a note, Robert, that said, my rant, the Flames are bad. So the floor is yours, because I'm looking forward. This is what I've been looking forward to on the show the whole time is what did Robert mean by the Flames are a bad team?
Well, yeah, you take a look at this Flames season overall, and when you take a look at it from the standings perspective, they've been either in a playoff spot or in the mix for a playoff spot all year. And for a team that's in the first or second year of a rebuild, that's on the surface, that's super impressive. And you do have to give credit to the team for playing hard and putting themselves in a position to be there. But when you really kind of break down the numbers and you take a look at their season, this team has been like pretty bad for the overwhelming majority of the season. So like you take a look at their start, they went 5-0-1. That start, along with Dustin Wolf, has pretty much propped up this team the entire season. So you take a look, since October 23rd, the Flames have played 54 games. So that's a big sample size. Sorry, I'm just pulling up the numbers here. So yeah, since October 23rd, they are 23-23-8. So 23 wins, 31 losses. Over that span, they're 24th in the NHL in points and points percentage. So that would give them the 9th overall pick in the draft. And when you start to break down some of the numbers, like you take a look at goals scored, the Calgary Flames, have only scored 129 goals in those 54 games, and that's dead last in the NHL. And it's not even close. The next closest team to them over that span is the Anaheim Ducks, who've scored 136 in the same amount of games. The Ducks, the 31st place team in scoring over that span, has scored 7 more goals than the Calgary Flames have. Like that is just atrocious. And then you take a look at special teams. They have the 18th ranked power play, 27th ranked penalty kill. Top scorer over that time is Nazem Kadri with only 39 points in those games, which is tied for 80th in the NHL in points over that span. So you see all these numbers. It just shows that this is not a good hockey team. This is a team that's been propped up by that good star, like I mentioned, and Dustin Wolf. And just to reiterate how good Dustin Wolf has been this season, particularly at 5-on-5. At 5-on-5, he's second in the NHL in high danger save percentage, third in goals saved above expected, fifth in save percentage, sixth in goals against average among 54 goalies to play at least 700 minutes. And in all situations, he's in the top 15 in every single one of those categories. So the way I view this kind of Calgary Flames season is that it's been Dustin Wolf that has single-handedly kept this team in the mix. This is a really, really bad hockey team. And just take a look at the goals scored. 129 over 54 games, dead last in the NHL, yet you're 24th in the league during that time. If it wasn't for Dustin Wolf saving this team week after week after week, the Calgary Flames would be in the basement of the NHL standings. I have no doubt in my mind they would be right there with the San Jose's and the Chicagos this season. I think that's, quite honestly, I think that's how bad they've been playing this year, but they've had a goalie prop them up, and they had that nice start, the 5-0-1 start, that have kind of kept them in the mix. So as we head into the trade deadline here, I see a lot of people saying, like, oh, they gotta go buy, like they gotta find young players, or they gotta find a fourth line center, a depth defenseman. I think it should be the complete opposite of that. I think they should be doing everything in their power to sell as much as possible. And that kind of starts with guys like Rasmus Anderson, Nazem Kadri, Blake Coleman, Sharon Govich, Farabee, Bahal, Bean, Hanley, Vladar. All those guys should be on the trade market. There's no reason whatsoever for them to not be exploring deals for them. They're obviously, between now and the deadline, aren't going to make all those moves. It'd probably be almost impossible to do it, but they should at least be having conversations about moving on from those players, because doubling down and investing in this group, I think, is just such a short-sighted, bad idea, because all it's going to lead to is them either missing the playoffs by 1 to 4 points and losing their first-round pick, or they sneak into the playoffs and they end up playing a Winnipeg in the first round and they get throttled in 4 or 5 games. I just don't understand this mentality from the Flames organization right now that they should be adding. And there's talks about in the summer they're going to be throwing $14-15 million a year at Mikko Rantanen, and they're wanting to re-sign Rasmus Anderson to an 8-year deal. It's just like, it just makes my head want to explode. I cannot stand hearing that kind of stuff. So that's kind of my rant. I know the Flames have been in the mix all year. They've been right in that wild card spot, but it's because of Dustin Wolf, and it's because of a hot 6-game run. Outside of that, the team has been brutal this year. I think they're kind of right in that Chicago San Jose mix, but Dustin Wolf has saved them this year. So I don't think it's a team worth investing in this year or next year. I think they need to stay the course. They need to continue to rebuild, and just the whole idea of, we got to make the playoffs. We got to make the playoffs this year. What good is that going to do in the grand scheme of things? I really don't understand. So that's kind of how I'm feeling about this. I've been bottling this up for a long time. It's nice to finally be able to scream and let it all out here.
Oh, I love it. I love rants. I love when someone finds something they're so passionate about that it becomes a nice rant and they were able to get it off their chest. But I agree with you, Robert. Like, there's a lot that you said in there that's absolutely agreeable with what you should be thinking of as a Flames fan or as a hockey fan. And I know there's this thing on Twitter right now, people going around like, well, if you're a loser if you want this team to lose. I'm like, no. You're misunderstanding what some of these people want. They're trying to build a winner. And in order to build a winner, you're going to have to take a step back to do so. You're trying to be honest in your assessment of this hockey team and where the Flames are at this time. Because I'm not going to do the numbers, but I would be fascinated to see where the Flames are if you just give them average goaltending numbers. Take away Dustin Wolf's numbers and put average goaltending numbers in that place in every single hockey game. Where would the Flames be? And I bet you they are closer to where you think they would be, Robert. The Chicagos, the San Jose's.
They'd be battling for the first overall pick, 100%.
Absolutely, rather than where they're supposed to be, because it certainly wouldn't go the other way. Dustin Wolf, like you said, is actually single-handedly winning these hockey games. You're only scoring 2 goals. I did the math while you were talking there. It's 2.388888 goals per game is what the Flames are scoring at over those 56 games that you mentioned. That's awful. Like, you're asking Dustin Wolf to get 1 or less to win hockey games here. So he is single-handedly pulling this Flames team along, and it sets you up for an interesting week ahead here, because we hear the Flames chat about we want to be a playoff team. This is all about making the playoffs. Ryan Husk is coaching this team like he wants to make the playoffs, which is why guys like Kevin Rooney continue to be in the lineup, because those are guys that he can trust in positions to help his team win hockey games. That's why you're seeing guys like Michael Backley continue to be the first guy over for the penalty kill. Things like that is because he's coaching to make the team a playoff team. And so this week's going to be very interesting, because I think the Flames are looking to add. I really do, based on everything that I've read and I've heard, and what you're hearing from guys like Frank Saravelli or Elliot Friedman, is this Flames team, they're shopping for a right-handed centerman. They're shopping for defensemen. There was reports Monday on Twitter, on X, the Flames have checked in with Boston about Brandon Carlo. That's a 28-year-old defenseman. So this team looks like they're trying to make the playoffs. They are making moves like they're trying to make the playoffs. And while I get trying to make the playoffs and be a playoff team, the play on ice is showing you this isn't a playoff team. So that's where my frustration is at. Everyone's calls that game last night. People are like, what an effort by the Flames. You sent me this. High dangers were 18-3 for the Hurricanes yesterday. What part of that tells you playoff team?
They didn't touch the puck yesterday. It was not a good performance.
And that's a typical result. You go back over the last few games, over the last couple of months here, you constantly see the Flames are out chance, 10-1, 11-3 in high danger zone. That's not a playoff team. And so the play on the ice doesn't match what the front office is saying, and then neither of those things match what Ryan Huska is doing on the bench either. For me, it feels like the Flames are trying to chase something. This reminds me a lot of what they did after the 2014-15 season. This reminds me a lot of the chatter just a couple of years ago when people were talking about re-signing Hanifin and Lindholm and getting all these guys back and running it all back with those old guys. This feels exactly the same right now when the opportunity for the Flames is right there. And I'm not saying tank. I don't like that word tank. But be honest with what you are. And when you're honest in what you are, you're going to move on from Erasmus Anderson. You're going to see if you can find a place for a Rooney. You're going to see if there's any takers for Blake Coleman. You're going to see in the offseason maybe there's some surgery for Nazem Kadri that you can do to move him along. Those are the things I think the Flames need to look at doing. So I get Robert's frustration here, listeners, and I agree with a lot of that frustration, because what you're seeing versus what they're doing, it doesn't match.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with you on that.
Let's chat about the trade deadline then, Robert. We're recording this on Monday afternoon. This comes out Tuesday morning. So when you listen to this, it's Tuesday or Wednesday, probably most likely. So we got a couple of days here before the trade deadline, of course. The Flames are sitting via the tiebreaker in that 8th spot in the Western Conference. So what do we want Craig Conroy to do? I'll start on this one because I have a really quick, short answer. So what I would like Conroy to do is to take his phone, give it to anybody that he trusts, and tell them to take it for the day. Just take it for the day. Stand pat, do nothing. And when that person who has their phone, they get a call about something very important, like say someone actually calls to knock your socks off for Rasmus Anderson or Nazem Kadri, then you give Craig Conroy his phone back. But I would would stand pat if I was Craig. Let this season play out here. And evaluate your players that you have. Evaluate your Solovyovs. Evaluate what you got in Frost and Farabee. Evaluate what Connor Zary is at center, or whatever else you need to do for this team. I think this is the time for the Flames to maybe stand pat, know what you are, and then only in extreme circumstances, like someone's knocking your socks off for Nazem Kadri, do you then get on the phone and make a move. That's just how I look at it. Robert, what would you like Conroy to do come Friday?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think the Flames are in any position whatsoever to be trading draft picks and prospects in a win now trade. I think that'd be very silly of them. Like you mentioned with Brandon Carlo, I got to think a guy like it's gonna probably take a second, maybe a third round pick and a draft pick, like that type of deal. I don't think the Flames should be doing that whatsoever. I think that would be very, very short sighted. So I hope they don't do that. Once again, I just don't think this team is worth investing in for this season. The time they should make those, like, add to your team, the Dougie Hamilton trades and the Travis Hamonic trades of the world, that's like, you should make those trades like 3 or 4 years from now when you're actually ready to contend, not when you have this team that's just being propped up by Dustin Wolf. So if I were Conroy, what I would love to see is, number one, they should be weaponizing their cap space. So either be a third party broker on a trade. So, say Carolina looks to move Mikko Rantanen again. Could the Flames eat half of that salary, and then the team that gets him for $3 million a year or whatever the price is? Could they retain on Brock Nelson's deal if Brock Nelson ends up getting traded? He makes $6 million. Could they retain on Brad Marchand if Marchand gets traded? Like, those are the types of things they should be doing. Get a third or a fourth round pick in exchange for that. And then the other thing too is, could they find some bad contracts out there that are expiring this summer? Are there contenders out there that need to move money out in order to make another move? So that's another thing that I would look to do if I was the Flames. Like, an example of that, I think, was the Nashville Predators traded Cody Glass to the Pittsburgh Penguins along with like a third and a fifth round pick. If that type of move is out there, the Flames should be all over that. So that's what I would do. And then another thing too is I would put pretty much every player available on the trade block just to have conversations about it. Like I said, doesn't mean that you have to move all of them, but start having those conversations about Anderson and Kadri, Coleman, Sharangovich, Farabee, Pahal, Bean, Hanley, Vladar. There should be conversations, and I think at least 2 of those guys should be moved between now and the deadline, whether that's Vladar and Hanley, whether that's, I don't know if you could find a suitor for Farabee. Rasmus Anderson, could you trade him and retain half of his salary, and he goes to a competitive team for the next 2 playoff runs, making $2.7 million? Like, that's the kind of stuff that I really, really want to see the Flames do. Will they do it? I can almost guarantee they won't, because they never retain money, and they are never in on bad contracts. They just kind of refuse to do that kind of thing. So that's what I would like to see them do. Now, the real conversation is, what will they do?
Yes.
What do you see Craig Conroy doing here between now and the deadline?
Oh boy, what I see Craig Conroy do is what I'm going to call the Brad Treliving. I think he goes out and he finds himself a defenseman. I think that Brandon Carlo's is the first of a few different names we hear this week in the media and on social media of people that the Flames have checked in on. I really honestly do. I think they're in the market for a top 4 guy. I think they want to find a guy who plays with Mackenzie Weegar on a more full-time basis, because they just can't trust the Miranovs and the Hanleys and the Pahals to be as a good top 4 solid defenseman. So I think they're trying to really hard to fill that hole. And it wouldn't surprise me at all if they go out and they try to find themselves another centerman. We keep hearing right-handed shot centerman. And I know Craig Conroy's been on multiple places saying that he's done his big move, but I think that's hogwash. I think that in the right situation, he goes out and he makes a move for right-handed shot defenseman or right-handed shot centerman. I really do. So I think I see the Flames making 2 moves. I think we see a depth forward come into this mix, and I think they go out and they find themselves a pairing a defenseman to pair with Mackenzie Weegar, despite the costs. And that was going to mean that people were going to be upset because they're going to move out a second round draft pick. They're going to move out a prospect along the lines. I really honestly think they will do that just to try to squeak into the 8th spot, because we all know who the owner is and we all know what he wants for his franchise. He wants that playoff revenue. And for them to do that, you just add a couple more pieces and you're right there, because there's no faith in Vancouver is going to get there. I have no faith St. Louis catches up or Utah can put it together consistently down the stretch here either. I think the Flames go out, they make a couple of moves, and that's the defenseman, and that's a centerman or depth forward. As much as we don't want it to happen, I honestly think that's going to happen. What about yourself?
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. I do think they'll end up buying. It's just based off of, all the insider reports and things you hear from reporters around the Flames. It does sound like they are going to be in the market for a couple different positions, the ones that you outlined. So, like Eric Francis on the broadcast yesterday said that the Flames have shown interest in Luke Kunin from the San Jose Sharks, a right shot, fourth line center, kind of a physical player with no skill whatsoever. So they're interested in a guy like him. There's the Ty Dellandrias, the Craig Smiths, Michael McCarrons of the world. Could they bring them in for a 5th or 6th round pick? That's something I think they'll be very interested in doing. And then, based off reports today, it sounds like they're interested in a guy like Brandon Carlo, who's a 28-year-old right shot defenseman with 2 years remaining on his contract. That's kind of like a win now move. So that tells me that they're going to be in the market for somebody, like you said, to help out Mackenzie Weegar. And, could that be just looking around the league? Do they have any interest in a guy like Mario Ferraro in San Jose, Nick Hague in Vegas, Alex Romanov in New York with the Islanders? Like, those are just some names that when I was kind of looking around the league kind of stood out to me. So I'm with you. I do think they're going to buy. I don't think that's the right thing to do with this group, but that's just kind of my 2 cents on it. The just kind of looking around the league and looking at different trade bait boards, the one team that I find really interesting, and it's not just for the deadline this year, but it could be in the off season or maybe even into next season. I really wonder if the Flames are going to target some guys on the Buffalo Sabres. Yeah, because like you take a look at Daily Faceoff's trade bait board, and it has Jack Quinn, JJ Peterka, Dylan Cousins, Bowen Byram. Like, those are all like really talented players. They're all really young players. Those are the kind of guys that I think Craig Conroy really wants to acquire. Do you see a fit at all there? Like, are there any guys on the Sabres that you think the Calgary Flames should be going after, between now and the off season?
Yes, because we were going to chat here in a second about trade targets, and I actually have a potential what could fit for the Flames and for the Sabres going back and forth. So this isn't a full package. These are just base players that I think could be involved in a trade between the two teams. What if the Flames were to use a Blake Coleman, a Miramanoff, and some other pieces to make a move for JJ Peterka and the defenseman Samuelson from the Buffalo Sabres? Add to it or take away as you want, but those pieces make sense for both ways. Samuelson's a defenseman who has kind of fallen out of favor in Buffalo. He can play in that top four. He's a left shot, which would fit beside Mackenzie Weegar. I think could help solidify the top four in Calgary a little bit. He's a little bit younger, 26, I believe I read he was, 25. So he fits right in the category that the Flames would like. JJ Peterka is a guy who can score. He doesn't seem to be a fit in Buffalo, in my opinion. People keep thinking he's being traded out, and those contracts are there. He's a right winger, which fits what the Calgary Flames need. So I think there are moves there, and definitely a fit there. One guy I'd also add in there, if there's a way the Flames could get Jack Quinn, I would be all over that as well. So those are some fits that I might see going back and forth.
Yeah, I mean, I like those guys coming back to Calgary. It'd probably take a little bit more than those guys, but the idea that the Sabres, they need like really good veteran players and just veteran people in their organization. Like, I really like that idea of Blake Coleman being involved. Coleman, I don't know how old he is right now. I think he's like 33 or 32, 33, somewhere in that range. But I have this feeling that Coleman's kind of on the precipice of a pretty steep decline, maybe starting as early as next season. And just like from an asset management standpoint, I think it would make a lot of sense for them to explore moving Coleman. And could you end up getting a Jack Quinn out of it or a Paterka out of it? That's something that's super interesting that I think they should have their eye on. Absolutely.
I use Miramanoff there only for the fact that he's a right-handed shot defenseman, and they have those three studs that are all left-handed shot. And Samuelson's also left-handed shot, so giving them a right-handed shot defenseman, maybe that helps move the needle for them a little bit. Maybe Miramanoff fits better with Buffalo and what they are doing out there. I don't know. It just didn't make things work. But Blake Coleman was really the main piece there. He's one Flame that I continually wonder about moving on from. And it's not because I hate Blake Coleman. You look at things that I do all the time. I got Blake Coleman as my header on X. I love the player, and I've always enjoyed watching Blake play. But I'm with you. When's it gonna fall off for him? When's it gonna not be the compete at the high level that we know Blake Coleman can bring? Now might be the time to jump on that, to get ahead of that train. And a team like Buffalo, they sorely need some veteran leadership. For all due respect to the guys they have there, but does Zucker really provide you with that veteran leadership? They don't have anybody on the back end that's really a veteran leader on that team. James Reimer is a goaltender that's kicking around there, but they need some veteran leadership. Blake Coleman can provide that for them. He's been there. He's won. And he fits what they're trying to do there. That he really does. And he could be a guy that goes in there and really allows Buffalo to maybe slot some guys better, put guys in better positions to be successful here. JJ Paterka also is a guy coming. If I were to bring him back, would be a guy that I would love to see play with a Connor Zary or a Morgan Frost. Maybe he can provide some offensive ability for these guys and help get those guys going as well. Maybe he's a guy you put with Sharon Govich, and those two can work off one another, just untapped chemistry somewhere. So it's just those are just some guys I was looking at, and I really like that the hypotheticalness of the Flames and the Sabres being trade partners. Who else would you target if you're Craig Conroy, knowing what he's doing out there and what he wants to do? Do you have a trade target or two if you were Craig Conroy that you'd be looking at?
I honestly don't. I looked around the league. I didn't really see any names that stood out to me, like, looking at different trade bait boards and all that kind of stuff. There weren't many guys that stood out to me outside those Buffalo players that I'd mentioned. So, if they could somehow make a move for a JJ Paterka or Dylan Cousins, more so Paterka. I'm not. What are your thoughts on Cousins? I'm not sold that he's like a legit second line center in the NHL. Just based off what I see, like what I watch from him in Buffalo, I find he doesn't have like that big an impact on a lot of games. Like, is that the type of guy you think the Flames should be going after?
I think he's a victim of Lindy Ruff, and I don't mean that in a negative way. Just some guys don't match coaches, and you all know that I'm biased towards Dylan Cousins because I watched him grow up here, has played for the local team here, drafted to Buffalo. I'm a big fan of the player. He's a lot better than what we've seen this year. He's a much better two-way forward than what we've seen this year. And I just wonder if he doesn't fit with what Lindy Ruff is trying to do in Buffalo. We all know Lindy Ruff is from the net out. He loves the defensive structure. He loves the defensive zone and being a good defensive structured team. And it doesn't allow for a lot of free-flowingness on the offensive side of things. So I think a little bit is Dylan Cousins has taken a step back, but I wonder how much that is affected by the style that they play in Buffalo, and that maybe doesn't fit what he brings to the table as a player. He's also still fairly young for me, so there's a bit of growth still there for me. And he's one of those guys that Buffalo keeps flopping from the wing to the center, kind of pick a spot for him to be here. So I'm trying not to be biased in my take there because I think there's still a lot there from the player, and I just wonder how much of the coaching change affected him in a negative light, all due respect to Lindy Ruff.
That's a good breakdown, and on the surface, I mean, it makes a lot of sense to go after a guy like Dylan Cousins, but he had that really nice second year in the NHL, but just the last two, it has not looked the same. And yeah, maybe that's just a product of his environment, like you said. Because honestly, at the time when the Sabres traded Sam Reinhart, I was almost thinking the same thing. I was like, is this guy like ever truly going to end up being that elite player that we think he is? Because he had a couple, kind of mediocre seasons in Buffalo, but then he absolutely flourished in Florida. Maybe it could be a similar thing if a Cousins were to come to Calgary. Who knows?
Yeah, for sure. I want to give you two names that I came across, knowing what Craig Conroy will most likely do at the deadline. So these are not moves that I would personally do. These are moves where I think could fit what Craig Conroy would like to do. What do you make of the name Jake Evans? And then you've already mentioned the other guy I had my eye on in Mario Ferraro.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think they should do anything like that. However, those are the types of people I think Conroy would have interest in. Maybe not so much Evans because he is a pending UFA, but I know Mario Ferraro, I think he's got another year left on his contract. I think that's something that he might be interested in, but I think that's the type of profile. Those are the types of people I think Craig's going to be in on between now and Friday. So I think those are two pretty decent calls by you.
And just for the record, Ferraro has one more year remaining at 3.25. So if they did make that move, he's very palatable given the Flames cap situation as of right now. Trade deadline week is always a fun one for me, always fun for the fans, always fun for the trade rumors, for the fake Twitter accounts that always get made around this time of year.
Frank Saravalli has been fantastic. I love Frank Saravalli.
It's such a funny one. There was a good one from Darren Drager the other year as well. It was like Baron Bagger. I don't know if you ever saw that one. Like, people are creative with them and they're hilarious with them, and I love watching people who freak out when they fall for one. We've all been there. So it's interesting to see what plays out on social media. So I wanted to warn everyone, just beware of those fake accounts. Have fun with trade deadline week as you're going through all your social media accounts. Have fun with your mock trades and enjoy this week, because I'm definitely going to enjoy this week. Robert, anything else for trade deadline from you? If not, where can folks find you and what's coming up on flamesnation.ca from you?
Yeah, check out Flames Nation for all kinds of trade deadline content. There's going to be a lot of stuff out there. I'll probably throw out a couple more articles between now and Friday, just talking about the deadline or the state of the team, all that kind of stuff. So check that out. But yeah, it should be a fun week around the NHL. I'm really looking forward to it. I know, like, trade deadlines in the past, like when I was in high school and in like middle school, there were times when I would like stay home all day and watch the deadline. So I have like a lot of great memories with the trade deadline. It's like literally one of my favorite days of the year. I'm really looking forward to it.
I'm really mad that trade deadlines moved to a Friday, because it used to be all on Mondays, and I don't work at my other job on Mondays. So on Mondays, I got to stay home. I put on Barn Burner in the morning, and then I watch trade deadline all day, and we'll all break down. And my wife makes fun of me when she comes in the door because I haven't moved all day. Now that it's on a Friday and I have to work, it's going to be a little bit different, but I'm still very much looking forward to it and seeing what the Flames do or do not do. Please don't do too much, Craig. And who else moves around the league. It's going to be interesting to see. Follow Robert at Ring of Fire CGY. Follow me at Vintage Johnny 84 across social media. Don't forget to follow the show Red Mile Rundown wherever you get your social media content and wherever you get your podcast. Thank you so much for making us part of your rotation of podcasts. We implore you, please, once again, add those 5-star ratings and give us a review as well, if you please. We appreciate each and every one of you. Enjoy the rest of the week. Enjoy trade deadline. Try to enjoy the Flames hockey this week, and we will see you guys next week on the show here on Red Mile Rundown.